Hello and welcome, Julie. Thank you for being here. Before we get going with your episode, I thought it'd be nice for those that may be here that don't know what Ethos or Stars of Ethos is. Let me explain very, very quickly. Ethos is an online community of creators, writers, photographers, people who are just scratching around, doing things that really the space came from Seth's Akimbo world. So there was Seth Godin had an Akimbo workshop universe, and as part of that collection, if you were part of one of those workshops, you ended up in a space called Forward Link that was sunsetted 2 or 3 years ago now. And for those that wanted an online space, there were a number of people that developed those. We developed one. There's a group of us, Daniel Burns, Michelle, Leanne, and me, who spearheaded this ethos space and made it a home for those that were in that other space. So that's how ethos got started. And then not too long ago, we were in one of our we call them curator jam sessions, and we were talking about, hey, what can we do to make this more interesting and fun? And one of the things we thought, well, how about a newsletter? Forward Link used to do a newsletter. And then we thought, well, what about an unnewsletter? What if we did like a podcast? And then we just made these episodes highlighting the people that are in the community and the special work that they're doing. So that's how we got to this. This is going to be the third one. So,
Mhm.
right out of the gate. And Julie, thank you so much for agreeing to do this and for being a part of it. With that, why don't I turn the microphone over to you? Who are you? Where are you? What are you working on? And then
Sure.
we'll dive into some of your special work.
Great. Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here on the Stars of Ethos. Um, so I am a wife, a mother of two. I am a runner, an endurance runner, and my background is in physical therapy. I live in central New York, so near Syracuse area. And what else?
What are you
And I
working on right now?
and I like to write. So I'm working on I'm writing stories about the JFK 50-mile race, and I'm also working on I'm leading the Run to Write group. It's a club, the Run to Write Club, that is an offline, local in-person group. So I'm working on that.
Super. Well, we're going to talk about those things as well. But one part that I kind of wanted to lead off with was a
Mhm.
fabulous book that you wrote about a very interesting journey that your family had, and the book is called A Real Ball Buster, which is a real catchy title. I have to say that's one of the best titles I've ever ever had. And I'm like, so this is how I was introduced to you. Yeah, yeah, through Ethos and then the book and so forth. And I bought the book and I went, wow, this is really fabulous. A lot of lessons in here, a lot of really interesting stuff.
Mm.
What's behind this? There's a story obviously about you and your family. And so tell us a little bit about that. And then why did you decide to share the story?
Mm. Yeah, so the story is about my family, but it's about my husband who had a reoccurrence with testicular cancer. So, I start the book off with when he was first diagnosed was when we first met. So right there, it's just wild. You're like, oh, nice to meet you. Okay, now we're going through this. And then then he had a reoccurrence, and that was in beginning of 2022. So this wasn't something I was in writing in community at this time, and I was writing, and I was so grateful for writing in this time to share, to get out all the emotions during this difficult challenge. Um, but what inspired me to share it, to publish it, really was for other parents. You know, when we first found out, the first time we found out, we didn't have children yet. And so I felt like, oh, we got through this and it didn't seem that big of a deal, even though, I mean, it was. But now the second time around, okay, we have two children. And I really didn't know, that was keeping me up at night, how to tell them, how much to tell them, when, where, like all of that was really difficult. And so I think when I decided, okay, I think I got permission from everybody, my children and Jeff, I'd like to share this with others to hope that um, it would be a light. It would be maybe something in there would help them get through it.
Yeah, well, it's very generous. It's such a generous act when you start opening up your personal
Mm,
life to people. That's vulnerable. That's the ultimate vulnerability, and to me, the ultimate form of generosity.
mm.
So, thank you. It's a like I said, there's a lot of little nuggets in here. So the subtitle reads untangling, testicular
Okay.
cancer together, which got me thinking about, well, if there's some untangling to do, there must be some discovery. There must be some things to discover. What what would you say? What could you share, in a few minutes about
Mm.
maybe some things that you discovered in the journey that would be helpful to other people?
I think the first thing was it's okay to ask for help. For me, that was I think I don't know, I'm still learning that. You just want to just do it yourself. And I just grew up from that type of background and that type of mentality where you do it yourself and you don't bother anybody. Um, so I really learned that, okay, I can't do this by myself. I have other people that depend on me. Um, so I had this responsibility, and so I can't just uh, take this on all alone, even though, my mind was like, oh, you can do this. You're not the one who's sick. So I really had to battle with that
Mm.
conversation in my mind, in the beginning was, well, you're not sick. You can take care of the meals. You can pick up the children. You can take Jeff to the appointments. Um, and I don't remember how I made it through that. I don't know if it was just writing about it, sharing with other people who were generous to share with me. It's okay to ask for help. You need to find your support. So I think that's one thing I would really share with other folks. And it doesn't even have to be a health challenge, it could just be any type of challenge, to find those people that you can lean into and ask for help. And now that and I say that now to other people, and because I went through this, oh, do you need me to pick up your kids? Would you like me to, I'll drop off a meal. Like I feel like now I have this, um, I don't know, I have more tools too, because we
Yeah.
went through this, of how to help others. But I had to be able to be willing to accept that and to receive that help.
Yeah, I think we're so conditioned by society and everything, probably, education, everything, how we're certainly work, where if you ask for help, it's almost a sign of weakness.
Yeah.
And instead it ought to be reversed.
Hmm.
It should be, it's a sign of strength.
Yeah.
Knowing how and when to ask for help is a real skill.
And it takes courage, right? Because, yeah, I think
Yeah.
you, yeah, because I think that was my thing. I didn't want people to think I can't handle it. That was
Right.
my thing.
Right.
Like, oh, you can't handle this, so you have to ask people. And and yeah, it's unfortunate that that's the first thing that I thought.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
we want to be seen as strong,
yeah.
and so that's part of it.
Hmm.
Yeah. And yeah, and some things, a lot of things, you just shouldn't have to carry all the weight, carry all the water all the time.
Yeah. And I think, and what I found in that was such a gift because some women at church, they wanted to, for like a month or two, drop off meals. And of course, my first response was, oh no, we're fine. That was like my first response. And I'm so glad that I circled back and I accepted it because just to see how excited my children were to like a new person was coming to our door, chit-chatting for a little bit. They didn't stay long, but my kids were like, "Oh, what did they bring?" And just like the excitement about food. I mean, it just was something that it helped us get through that. And and that would have been unfortunate if I didn't accept that. I
Yeah.
Because again, I wouldn't be showing my children, yeah, we need to ask for help when we're going through hard times. We're gonna just rally our troops
Yeah.
together. They're gonna help us through this, and then we can do the same.
Yeah. This is really good and it's good for me because I I see myself as a confident person and a person who can handle things. But I think it's nice to reflect on where might I actually be more effective, have a bigger and better impact with some help.
Mm.
It's interesting. Thank you. That's
Oh,
really good. And we
that's
can
so,
take that into any part of our life. That's what I like.
yeah.
And so much of this book. One of the things that when I was reading through the book,
Mm.
one of the things that caught my attention, and it will anybody's that reads it, is what's the it's your move. So each there's a it's your move
Yeah.
at the end of each chapter, right?
Yes.
And so tell us about that and how does that work and what inspired that? Because
Yeah.
it's really golden.
Well, my background's physical therapy, so I really believe in movement, and that helps with our discomfort, that helps with our pain emotionally or physically. And during this time, it was funny because I was having a lot of random pains that I've had in the past that I've worked through. And it was funny how that was reoccurring. And I'm like, okay, I need to do my nerve glides. I need to do these movements. I need to make sure I get out and run. And it made me think, okay, I really want to encourage people to keep moving. Okay, even though you're going through this awful thing, the movement's going to help you. It's going to uplift you. It's going to give you energy. It's going to, for me, show up for my family how I wanted to. Because we have to still take care of ourselves so that I can take care of my husband. I can take care of my
Yeah.
kids.
Maybe even more
So,
so, right?
yeah. So that was like really during this whole thing. I'm like, okay, I'm going to move no matter what. Whatever that looks like, I'm going to move. And usually for me, it is a run, but there were moments where I needed to, okay, my body's talking to me. I better get up and do something else, you know. So there's a bunch of different movements on there, laying down, seated, standing to mix it up for people, um, to encourage people to move.
Yeah, it's so great. I mean, it's at the end of each chapter, and then you go to you have a YouTube channel, right? And so you go
Yeah,
to a
so it is
video.
all, yes, it's on YouTube, so you can access it, you can come back to it
No,
and
it's
just
fabulous.
take and pick what you want. You don't
It's
have to,
fabulous. Yeah.
yeah.
We'll put when we release the show in the notes, we'll put links to these things so that people can head to them and see it. Another
Sure.
thing that I found actually quite moving was the manufacture sunshine piece.
Mm.
And was that poem at the beginning of that chapter? Did you write that?
Yes, I wrote that. So credit to Terry Tomoff for the manufacturing sunshine. We have to give her the
Yeah.
trademark.
Right. Because I saw that it was trademarked. I wonder,
Yeah.
yeah. So, okay. But you wrote the poem.
Oh yeah, I wrote the poem to her and I'm like, I need to put this in the book. Um,
Yeah. You wrote this to her. And
yeah.
so what is Manufacture Sunshine? Tell us about that?
Well, in Terry's book, The Focus Fight, so I don't know if you're familiar with
I'm
her
not.
story. Okay, so Terry and Bill, their son is is a cancer, I mean, he's a cancer survivor since a child and he's had cancer several times. So her book was something I leaned on. It was funny. I read her book in like 2021, the beginning of 2021. And then here we are. So in her book, she talks about, okay, we need to manufacture our own sunshine. And it was funny because I was like, okay, I want to fight back with joy. I want to find joy in each day, even though we're going through this. And it just reminded me of Terry, like, let's look for the nuggets of joy. And that was something my kids could like resonate with. So I really was grateful for Terry's book to help me through our situation. And so I wrote that poem.
Wow. Well, I'm wondering if I didn't cover this with you in advance, but I'm wondering if maybe at the end, do you have a copy of it? Could you read the poem
Oh,
for
sure.
us?
Yeah.
All
Oh,
right.
that's
Yeah, because I'd like to finish with it because I read
oh,
it twice and I'm like, oh, this
oh
is
yeah.
good.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Yes, that is 100% my words.
Yeah. Okay.
You're
Well,
like,
at the end, I'd love for you to close with that. That would be
all
great.
right,
And if you have
sure.
a copy of it
Oh, yeah.
handy, or maybe you have it memorized, but
I
it's
don't
it's
know,
it's
but
so good. Uh, you think you'll write another book about anything?
yeah, I really want to write a book about the JFK 50 miler.
We're going to talk about that in a minute.
Yeah, I
I'd say
think
after the
that's
break,
my
but
next
the's no
book.
break.
Okay.
See,
Yeah, we don't have time for a break.
that's how you get them back in.
I see.
So, okay, you think so you have another one in you. That's wonderful news because this is
Yeah.
so good.
Oh, thank you.
And it's about the JFK 50 miler, which we're going to talk about in just a minute.
Hmm.
What, and I know this, what can you offer anyone who maybe hasn't written or published a book? Is there
No.
anything just in a couple of nuggets that you could say to those people? Because it's not easy.
No. It's like, well, it's an endurance sport, right? I mean,
It is.
I look at writing so much like running. It's amazing how much it is. One step at a time, one word at a time. And you just got to sit down and show up. You just got to sit down and show up.
And showing up, by the way, we'll put a link in the notes on this too. But Julie hosts a right now session
Oh,
on.
yeah.
It's currently
Right.
on and it's currently as this is 2024. It's currently Mondays, right?
Hmm.
And it's at 11 a.m. Eastern
Yeah.
time. Is
In time. Yep.
that correct? And it goes for an hour, and it's open for you. You don't anyone can come,
Yeah. Anyone
and
can
it's
come.
wonderful. I'm now like 4 or 5 times in a row. Hadn't done one in
Regular.
like 2 years. And then I did one and I'm like, well, this is the best thing ever. It's because it makes me focus
Hmm.
and show up and
Yeah.
do some writing.
Yes.
And it's magical. It's really magical when you focus. And I didn't put it all together, but halfway through, she does a little, it's your move. You help us move
Yeah, I was
in the
thinking I need
break.
to add that in. Like we should be moving in between. So yeah, I try to add in a few little
Yeah.
nuggets
It's
there.
great. It's really good.
Can't
It's
sit all
really
day. We
good.
got to get up and move.
No doubt. Okay. Let's
Mhm.
let's keep going. All right, let's get to the running. Okay.
Okay.
How long have you been running?
Oh, since a child.
Okay.
So my
I
first,
mean, like I ran as a child, but I ran because I wanted, to catch my buddy or something.
Oh no, no. I ran my uncle, he was an avid runner. So my first memoir is about this. I wrote a little bit about how running really got me through my childhood. Um, I ran in high school and college, and so it's just been a part of me since I was a kid.
So
And
you
it's
ran competitively
yes,
in school?
yes.
Wonderful.
And I loved
Yeah.
it. And it's gotten me through some really hard times.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
gift.
Well, I'm not an accomplished runner like you are. I've done the only thing competitive I've run in are, marathons and some triathlons and things of that nature, but nothing,
That's great.
didn't do it in school or anything. So, and I didn't really find it until much
Mm.
later in my life.
Oh, well, good.
Yeah, I always saw it as a thing had to go do in PE or something, or at practice, and it was awful, and it's just it was terrible. But now I can't. A day without running is like it's not the same. I really
Hmm.
enjoy it, and it does. I think for me, what it does for you in a way, which so let's continue down the thread of running. How does running fuel your writing?
So, and this is like a new arena for me. Like, I've run my whole life, but I really didn't start this writing practice till probably like 2020. So I never really connected
Ah.
how does that have anything to do with anything? But it does. I'd go out and run, and I just started noticing I was paying more attention to what I saw, what I heard, how I felt, what was my mind saying, my heart, all these things. Um, and it gave me time to, and running always gave me time to think and kind of clear my head and de-stress. But this was like the next part. I was taking all that now sitting down right after and writing it down. And I think what I've learned with running, it shakes loose a lot of things that I have stored up in me, that I need to get out on paper. You know, I a a lot of memories I've had, some good, some not good, that we kind of store and we don't talk about it, we don't write about it. And I've noticed the more I've run, it really is amazing how it sparks a memory that you're like, oh my gosh, I haven't thought about that in years. And now it gives you something to write. So it could have been a smell that I smelled manure. I grew up on a dairy farm. So now I'm running by a farm and I'm smelling manure, and immediately these memories are coming up that I haven't even thought about in years. And I'm like, I need to get that out.
Oh,
So
that's so
that's
good.
what I'm really finding. I'm like, wow, there's so much to write. There's so much to write. And then poetry. I've always wanted to be a poet. And I dabbled a little when I was a kid. Um, but it has given me that gift to just play around with words and write poems about being outdoors and what I'm seeing, the birds, the different trees, the smells, and then all the different seasons because I run through all the seasons.
Yeah,
And just
outside,
come up,
right? Yeah. Treadmills are like,
I don't have that. I don't have that option. So I'm outside,
yeah,
and it's such a joy. It really is.
it is.
Just
It's a gift for us. It's
yeah.
because we won't always be able to do it. I mean, I'm sure there's going to come a time when I won't be able to go run,
Yes.
and it'll be a sad day.
Hmm.
I'll probably walk, but if I can, but it'll be sad. This morning, speaking of smells, I'm running. It's dark, and where I am in my neighborhood, there are active deer There's an active
Oh,
deer population, and I'd never seen this many. And they had a bunch of babies, and they come
mm,
flying by, and I'm on the train, and it spooked me a little bit. But
yeah.
all of a sudden, I smelled them. I'd never smelled deer before because I'm pretty far away. They scamper off. You don't, but it
Hmm.
must have been the way the wind was going, and
Oh,
I could
amazing.
really take it in, and it was just an odd smell. It's not a smell you smell every day, and
Hmm.
it was just so, and it's stuck in here, it's there,
That's nice. That's cool.
yeah, it was cool. Right. Yeah. So these are the kinds of things. Hey, for those, all right. So
Yeah.
why would you recommend this practice? And maybe it's not running, maybe it's some other form of movement or exercise,
Yeah.
but why would you recommend this to someone else? What's so important about it?
Oh, that movement, that really does fuel our creativity. I don't, and like I said, I don't know if it's shaking things loose, if it's just getting out of our heads, maybe because we're paying attention to what's around us, but then
Hmm.
also moving is, uh, I don't know.
There's got to be science behind it, right? I mean, I'm
There
sure
is, and I probably should have
there's
found that
blood
before I got
flow
on
and
here.
well, no, we don't want to get too,
Yeah,
nerdy and
too
technical, but
technical.
I mean, I know that every time I go, if I exercise, move, even if it's walking,
Hmm.
I my head is different than before.
Yeah.
So, and anyone I've talked with that is does this, it's the same. It's how
Mhm.
it really changes your day.
Yeah. I don't know if it's, the happy hormones being released
Yeah,
with
I
the
don't know what it
movement.
is,
It could be
but it's
that.
it's good.
But even walking, yeah, walking is just as good.
Yeah.
Get out there for 30 minutes.
Okay. So you write. So you have a blog, right?
Hmm.
It's called Run to Write.
Run
Run
to
to
right.
Write.
Yes.
Uh, so why did you start that? And then is there a podcast? There's a podcast as well, right?
Yeah, so it's all with Substack. So it's kind of nice. It's all within that
Yeah, yeah,
platform.
yeah. I have a Substack. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can do a podcast through it, which is kind of cool. So that's what I've done. I write, and then on Thursdays I'll write, but then I also offer the podcast, the audio version. And initially it started with poetry because I needed to get more comfortable talking. I don't know why. I just really um, have this fear of speaking. So I was like, I want to get more
Well, you don't
comfortable
seem
with that.
to. You seem to be doing
Oh,
fine.
well, I'm gotten better. I've been working on that. Um, So that's been since 2021, I think I started that, where I was like, okay, I'm just going to start reading poetry out loud and maybe that'll help me. And if no one listens, that's okay because I wanted to just get better at putting myself more out there. Um, but again, I was noticing how running and writing was helping. And so I was like, I'm going to create this newsletter or blog about running and writing. Oh, this is what I created on my run. Here's this poem. This is what I made. And to encourage other people to run or to move and also to write.
That's
So,
so nice and so generous that you take the
oh,
time to do that.
oh, thank
Because
you.
it'd be easy to hoard it all for yourself and just,
Oh,
feel good about it, but you're expressing it and it's really nice. And it comes to I get it actually to my email inbox. And so
mm,
look forward to it
oh,
every
thanks.
time. Yeah.
And again, to encourage, keep encouraging us, right? To
Hmm.
just show up, to write, to share.
Show up.
Yeah. And that has led to the Run to Write Club
Yeah. That was
local.
going to be my next question. So tell
Yeah.
us about the Run to Right Club.
Yeah. Because again, after going through what we went through with Jeff's cancer, it was really healing to be able to write a lot of it. And I was like, wow, it'd be great to offer this to other people. Space to move and then space to write. So that's what we do. We meet in a local coffee shop, cafe. We walk or run. Everyone just goes at their own pace. Then we gather back with some warm drinks. I make treats that are healthy. And then we write together for 30 minutes. And then we leave time. So this is what's gotten cool. It's getting better because a lot of the members were like, "Oh, we would like to share." And I'm like, "Oh, great." So now I leave 15 to 20 minutes at the end and we share our writing. And it's just been so cool to just hear, to get to know these strangers and listen to their words. And oh, they're just brilliant. It's been really awesome. It's been cool to be able to sit there and listen to other people's stories and then encourage them to share them. to the world to maybe write their own book.
How many people show up to these to the run to write
Well, it varies. So the
club?
first club, so I when I first got started, there was probably between 8 to 10 of us at a time that would come. Um, Now it's like, maybe like there's 6 or 7. So it just depends. People will drop in or they'll sign up for the full 6 weeks. So it's kind of the numbers vary, but I like to keep it at 10 at
Are
the most.
Have you inspired anyone else to do this anywhere else? I mean, this is physically obviously where you are,
Mhm.
but are there other clubs like this?
Not that I know of, but I know that there's other people interested. They're like, "Oh, this sounds really cool. We want to
Yeah.
do this." I'm
Well,
like, "Do
that's what was
it."
going through my head. I'm like, this is pretty cool, and this is very
Yeah.
this checks so many boxes, right? It's not just
Yeah.
about because there's tons of running clubs. I've been part of those and training clubs and all this.
Yeah.
But what about the other part, the the cohort, the safe space of
Yeah.
the writing and sharing work and talking about it and encouragement, that sort of thing. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's been really cool to see the community that's forming,
Mm.
the connection, how it's just organically everyone's connecting on wherever they are, and all these friendships that are forming that it's just really neat. It's
You've
really,
See, it's the beginning of a movement.
I hope
I can
so.
feel it.
I hope so. That would be cool.
And you'll be trademarking soon.
Maybe.
I hope so. See if we can make that happen.
Oh,
Oh gosh. All right, let's switch gears
okay.
to the recently completed the
Oh, yeah.
JFK. Tell us about that experience. Why would you always first question is why would anyone with intention decide they're going to run an ultra marathon, which is anything more than a marathon, but in your case it's 50 miles.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
laugh because I'm like, could I even imagine myself doing that? I guess I could, but I'd have to be really nuts.
You could
Tell
do
us
it.
why did you do it?
You could do it.
Yeah.
Well, so since I was a child, my big goal was to run the Boston Marathon. So when I finally ran it in 2021, you kind of am like, okay, what now? And I've
Yeah, that's
had
kind of like the
now what?
top of the game.
Yeah, you're like, okay, now what? What do you want to do? And it's funny because a few years before, I met another runner and he was like, "Do you run ultras? You should do that." And it kind of just planted a little seed in me, and I was like, I can't do that. I don't have the time. Like all the excuses that come up right
Yeah.
away. Oh, I don't have the time to do that.
I got 20 of them right here.
Right.
Maybe 50.
So it's hilarious because all those excuses right out the door. Um, and I was planning on doing it but then Jeff got sick. So I pushed it off and I'm like, okay, maybe now's the time. Um, so for me, initially it was for me. I wanted to see, can I push myself? Can I do this next challenge? What am I going to learn? How can I grow in my running? Um, and then it switched gears a little bit to let's dedicate these miles to people who have been touched with cancer, or maybe even some of my friends who are no longer able to run anymore, that would love to be doing what I'm doing, that would love to be in my shoes. And so I didn't want to take that for granted that I can toe this line and I can run for 50 miles, and someone else would may want to be doing that can't. So then it really became more of let's run this for others who can and I
Wow.
dedicated each mile. So
Mm.
that really kept me going, was dedicating each mile to somebody. And
Well, it touched me. You were kind enough to dedicate one of those miles to my mother, who I lost
yeah.
to breast cancer, and I really, really appreciate it. It's very meaningful to me.
Well, thank you for sharing that and allowing me to do that.
Mm.
So it was just cool to have all these names together I strung them on string and kept them in my vest.
Mm.
Um, and it's funny how the names came up at certain times. I really tried to memorize each name at each mile. It gives your brain something to focus on than the discomfort, right? So it was really helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. It's daunting to me to think of a physical feat that's that much.
Mhm.
But I understand what, yeah, the emotional drive behind it, and that is magical and inspirational. Gosh, I mean, to know that we can do these things is a nice. It's nice to hear that, that
Yes,
that it
I think
it
that's
can
it.
it can happen. Yeah.
We are so much more capable, I think, that we give ourselves credit.
Mhm.
And even after, I wasn't sure how it was going to be afterwards. Like, is this going to take a long time for me to recover? Like,
Mhm.
it's just amazing how the human body bounces back. Of course, with the proper training and, those things definitely, I think, led up to um, my recovery to be as good as it was and to have a
Mhm.
coach to help me. So I definitely want to.
So, what advice would you give someone that's contemplating, whether it's a ultra marathon or any sort of endurance running? What would you recommend to them? What are some things that you would say to someone?
I, I first would recommend linking up with somebody if you could get a coach or at least a running buddy um, to keep you going because there's going to be days you're not going to want to
Mhm.
go out there. So if you have that accountability or if you have that training plan lined up for the week, that was my accountability. He had it all lined up for me. He was taking the time to do that. And it allowed me to not, that was one less thing I had to think about. So I appreciated that. And then I'm just going to go out and do the work. I'm just going to show up and do the work and keep doing it. And I really just think, it sounds so simple, but it really is okay. Figuring out, well, why do you want to do this? Really deep down, no, well, why am I going to do this? Because when it's uncomfortable or when you don't feel like it, okay, well, you got to
Yeah.
have, you really do have to have that reason.
So the difference between people that finish these types of races and endurance runs and those that don't are people they know that at mile 20 or 30 or whatever,
Yeah.
it's going to come, and you're going
Hmm.
to you're going to want to quit,
Hmm.
or you're going to contemplate it. What are you going to do with it?
That's right.
Knowing that in advance. No, it'll show up. Here's what I'm going to do. So that was really, when he said it that way, it was very interesting to me that
Yeah,
yeah, that's
I
that's
like that.
powerful. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And my coach said to me, what are you going to say? Because it's going to come in waves, that discomfort. And it
Yeah.
came in waves. So, okay, when it comes, it's going to come in waves. But when it comes, yeah, what are you going to say? How are
Yeah.
you going to keep going?
And now
Yeah.
relate that to writing, or let's say finishing a book
Yes. Yes. Oh,
or a
sure.
zine,
They're going to I don't
whatever,
want
or
to
a
do this.
blog post. Oh, gosh, I'm really tired of doing this. I mean, who cares?
Yeah.
Nobody's reading it. It sucks. Stephen Pressfield calls it the resistance.
Yes. I love his book.
Yeah,
Yes.
and he just says it always shows up every time, guaranteed. Doesn't, won't doesn't not show up. Always will show up.
And
What do
isn't
you?
that comforting to know, though? Like for me,
Yeah,
oh, good. So
yeah,
then you don't think something's wrong with you. Like
yeah.
for me, that was it. Oh, good. This is good. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
It's not
supposed to
just
be
me.
here.
Yeah, it's supposed to happen.
It's fine. Everything is fine.
I imagine that with your 50-mile accomplishment, that in large part, you mentioned training, having help, knowing,
Yeah.
being okay with seeking help.
Hmm.
In my case, I remember how important it was to be nutritionally adjusted and sound, because
Hmm.
endurance athletes, eat differently. They take in different, you know, amounts of calories, and it can be really wild what it can do to your body if you don't do it correctly. So I found that finding someone that knew something about that and really helping was important because I would not have accomplished it had I eaten the way I was eating prior to training. It just wouldn't have
Mm,
worked.
hmm. Yeah, the nutrition timing is very crucial, and to be able to practice that when you're training.
Yeah.
Again, a lot of this is practicing, figuring out everyone's different, so you got to kind of figure
Yeah.
out what does your stomach tolerate?
Mhm.
What does it like? What's going to work with you? Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of
Yeah.
trial and error.
Trial and error. I love that. Yeah,
I,
exactly.
you're
Yeah.
just, all right, let me see how this works. Oh, that didn't work. And you can write it down so you kind of know and then adapt. You got to pivot and adapt. And that has worked well. It works well in a 50 miler. Learning to pivot and adapt and not freak out.
I think could work well for a 3 miler, depending
Yes.
on a
It's for,
person's,
yeah,
where they are in
anywhere.
their
Yes.
progress. For sure. Yeah. I mean, heck, just for those getting started, just putting your shoes down next to the bed, something
Yes.
forces
You're
yourself because it's
right.
you got to take the step, right?
Yeah. Put it on the
And
calendar and don't ditch yourself, right?
yeah, make a public statement to people, publicly, hey, here's I'm going to go run every other day or whatever, and
Yeah.
then, well, it's been magical to listen to you
Oh,
and very inspirational,
oh, I appreciate that.
but I'm also mindful of time. Before we close, and
Mhm.
before I hope you'll read that poem to us,
Oh, sure.
how can people connect with you? Where can they find you? And then I'll put that into the notes.
Yeah, so I have a website, juliebhughes.com. So you can go there and you can find my books. You can find the YouTube channel if you want to check out some of the movements. Um, you can subscribe to Run to Write. It's a free publication on Substack and join the conversation in the community there. Um, yeah, that's probably the best, easiest
Perfect.
place.
So we'll make sure that's in there for
Yeah.
people to follow and
Yeah.
connect with you. And I hope people do because it's sure brightened my days and my life
Oh, well,
to
thank
be
you.
connected to you. Thank you. That means, yeah, you've done a
Appreciate it.
lot of wonderful things, that some of which I can only dream of doing. So, would you mind closing us with the poem
All right, yeah, let me
because
find
it's
that.
just fascinating.
Oh, well,
I mean,
thanks. Well,
it's
this is cool. Let's see. All right, 85.
yeah.
Okay. So this was to my friend Terry. My friend Terry is a light bringer. She reminds me to look for the nuggets of joy and to manufacture my own sunshine. A wise invitation as cancer has crept into our home unwelcomed. A thief in the night, yet we won't let it steal our joy. Terry reminds me. I will keep my head up. I will keep going. I will keep my light bright for my children, for my husband, even during this terrible time. I'm given another day to create, to serve, to manufacture sunshine. Thank you, Terry, for sharing your story, the focus fight to help mine. Thank
Mm,
you. I read that
so
in a while.
good. That's
Yeah.
on page 85 or
85.
70. Yeah, somewhere. Okay. And it's
85.
in this book, folks. You need to get this book.
Yeah. Oh,
Even, the cancer story is obviously very important and it will help people that are facing a similar challenge. But there are a lot of nuggets that you can take into your life here.
mm,
So
yeah.
thanks for putting it out there. And
Thank
thank you
you,
for being
Michael.
here.
Gosh, thank you so much. This was great. Thank you.
Thanks so very much. And I'll see you in the next Right Now session, probably.
Yeah, great. Thanks.
All right. Thanks.